Hi, and welcome to the Always Right podcast, where I am Carissa DeLay, author of Vendera Publishing, and this is
Jamie Vendera, trying to keep a straight face because we have so much
yes,
fun before we start these.
yeah. And you know what? We probably should just tell the people what we're talking about. Sometimes our conversations beforehand are pretty funny. But
Well, let's talk about because you said you wanted to do a podcast on this. I had posted that video about if you want to write a book, start getting up early. I get up at like 5 a.m. and you're like, stay up late.
yes,
I'm
so
like,
that's now on the set list. We are going to literally talk about. We're just going to have a series in the Always Right podcast that talks about Jamie versus Carissa.
I love it.
Yeah, so because we did the one where it was our viewpoints on writer's block, but so we'll have an upcoming one on our stay up late or get up early. Which one's better?
Yeah. So speaking about how writer's block doesn't exist, I'm writing this song with Scott called Incomplete, and I don't write the lyrics; they just come to me. First verse fell out, chorus fell out, bridge fell out, and I love the song, but then I'm not feeling it. So I haven't really written a second verse. I don't think about it. And I did something today, and you'd be like, "See, you're right. Writer's block does exist." But I tried something out, and we laughed about it. I was like, "I won't use ChatGPT." I'm like, "Hey, here's a song called Incomplete. Here's the first verse and chorus. Write me the second verse." I reworded it a couple different ways, and I got a bunch of stuff, and I'm looking, I'm like, nah. But there were a couple good ideas in there. So when I'm bored and I can't write anything, I could switch over that for
Ladies and
what
gentlemen,
did Scott put? He texted back. We laughed. He said ideas, to make me feel passionate about it again.
Yeah.
So
again, that's just writer's block.
There we go. Yeah. I heard you. It was almost like it's writer's block.
It's still writer's block.
All right. It's boredom, but
today our topic is not a debate. We're going to help you and kind of figure out some of your editing challenges. Maybe not very many people are familiar with, when you get stuff written, whether it's your book or a college paper or whatever you're writing, you're not sure the next step when it comes to editing. So you have a friend, you're like, oh, my friend's really good with grammar and can spell. I'll just have them edit everything. It's not that it's not that easy, because there are different types of editing you need for different types of books, for different types of writing, especially when it comes to your work. First of all, your friends are not going to be aggressive enough to tell you what you've done wrong. You need a neutral party. Yeah, you need someone that's going to be like, listen, this isn't working. Like this paragraph here that you love so much, it's pointless. You need to take it out because you're like stopping the flow of the story. Which is really hard when you write your first book. Do you feel like, so let me ask you this, Jamie, when you wrote your first book and you had it kind of picked apart, I think we discussed this at one point, did you feel like you were losing part of your story that you thought was important at first, and then you're like, oh wait, this doesn't make sense?
I actually, if we're talking nonfiction, I actually need to fully edit that book. It's never been fully edited by Rich Daglish, the guy that we use. But I had an old school teacher edit it. I had a friend edit it, and they both love me. So there wasn't much input like, hey, you need to change this or change that. And I look at it, I'm very repetitive, and I could clean it up. So I didn't lose anything. But when I had Rich Daglish, we had a couple editors for a book called The Crisis, or no, it wasn't The Crisis Artifact. It was another one in that line. Feral was the book, an apocalyptic series. And when he edited it, I about lost it because he edited, it was like, I can't remember. It's 43 or 46,000 words. And when I got it back, it was 28,000. And
where's my story?
Exactly. I about had a stroke, and I told Daniel Middleton, who we use for some interior design, I said, I'm going to kill this guy. He's just ruined this book. We should have kept this other editor, which we really didn't like. They didn't do a good job. I read it, didn't miss it. I missed one little paragraph, one little scene, and I was kind of, mean about it. Like, well, we're going to put it back in because it's my book. And Rich is like, you don't really need it. You need a show. You don't need to tell. That little tiny scene don't really add to the cinematic overview. You could take it or leave it. And I never put it back in. And I don't miss it at this point in time. So, but with you, I mean, when you had it, because who edited your book to begin with?
Okay,
Because
so
you didn't touch Rich.
Okay, so if you listen to our previous podcast, you will learn that when Jamie and I first were introduced to each other, by the happenstance, I had a client that knew your mother.
Yep.
You were like, I want to take your book, but I want to cut it in half. And of course, your first baby, you're like, no, I'm not doing that. This is my book. I'm not cutting it in half. There's no place to cut it in half. And I was stubborn, just like you said you were. And you're kind of just like, no, I'm not doing that. So I stepped away from you and said, I'm going to self-publish. And but you were like, hey, let me hand you my editor and see if he would be interested in maybe like editing for you. So I had Rich do my editing. And prior to that, I had two different English teachers from my kids' school read them separately. So I figured I could have like I'll have this person do it. And the challenge was they both edited it differently. They punctuated differently. They changed things differently. Nothing was the same. So I asked one, I was like, why is it when you do it, it's like you want the structure this way. When this one does it, it's different. They're like, because it depends on what you teach, how you teach editing. Completely like a different view. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So I decided to go with Rich, and he went through there, and I started out with 400 or not, well, about 450 pages. So there was like I think there was over 100 and almost 150,000 words is what I had. I think it was at 149,000, like 149K was the words I had. So I held on to every single one of those words. This is my baby. Like I put all my heart into those words. Like I'm like, oh yeah, this word is. I spent hours thinking, oh, what word would be? Oh, this is perfect. You're like clinging on to like a sentence that you spent.
It's your child. Yeah, you just like, birthed a child.
I spent a lot of time on that paragraph, and then he just cut that paragraph, or he demoted it to from a paragraph to a sentence. And you're like,
well, they call him the butcher. They literally do.
But you know what? So the cool thing is, and most people don't realize, so when you have someone edit and they do it in a way that's friendly, is he sends us a document. When you get this document, everything he edits is a different color. Everything he's taking out is red, but you still see it. And everything he adds, I think, is blue. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. It's been a little bit since I've had a book edited because I haven't published anything since 2019. So for me, I went through and I was reading. I'm like, huh. And I'm not gonna lie. There's things I put back in that I'm like, I'm putting this back in there.
I felt the same way. I dig it, but that you hit the nail on the head. First time authors, you're so married to that book. It's your baby. If you structurally change one paragraph, you lose your mind. Yeah. And I'm not like that anymore. I'm not married to my writing. I don't even check. I told him, I said, don't bother to turn on the changes. He'll send it to me. I read through it. And Rich is human. We're all human, so there may be one or two typos here or there. Or maybe there'd be a line that I need to fix. That's just human error. It's no big deal. So I always go back through and read it. I'm good.
And which we'll discuss this in a future podcast about, when we're talking about the different types of publishing. When you get a bigger publishing company, they have like anywhere from 5 to 6 editors. So you're going to get, and even with 5 to 6 editors, you will find discrepancies in like books with Dan Brown or Stephanie Meyer. You're going to see discrepancies in those books, and it's human error. It's just what it is. I mean, so if you're a reader and you're listening here, please stop judging people based on their mistakes, because you know what? It happens. It doesn't change the fact that the story is great.
No, I love Terry Brooks. I love all the Shannara books, and I have caught typos in those books. And then I don't care, but you'll be on a Facebook fan page and like, why didn't they ever fix on page 307 in this paragraph? And he had on a red tunic and they said green. Little things.
Well, I mean, I can see now that is more of like we talked about in the.
Well, that's continuity that you should be on point, but it happens. Right. Or it could be a word that's misspelled. It could be misspelled.
So here's the thing. There's different types of editing. And to make it easier on you and your editor, it's nice to, oh my gosh, this light's blinding me. But if I don't have it on, then I'm like, I can't, it's like dark too. But, so one of the things that I have found with this new book that I'm writing is you need to have continuity. You need to have, like, if they're wearing that green pants in the beginning, make sure you either tell a reason that they ran home and changed their clothes or go back and check. Like, a lot of times if an author puts a story down and then they pick it back up months later, they forgot what they did. So go back and read to get back in the flow. So that way you can kind of keep that going, or keep notes like, oh yeah, I put green pants on this person, just make a little note somewhere. So you remember this character is wearing this in chapter, 7, but like,
Chris, I'm the same way. Like, I'm working on the 4th book for Age of the Sigil, and those books aren't huge, but they may be 250 pages a piece. And I have extensive notes. However, I will not begin writing it until I've read the first 3 books again, because I feel like it puts me in a mind, and I read it, I check my notes, I make sure if there's something I don't have to add. I have to do that because my brain's everywhere, and I will screw it up. I'll forget something, be like, oh, why didn't I catch that? So it just that's my process for that.
Yeah. So give me a second here. I think that my internet was being a little weird because you were like frozen for just a half second.
Yeah, you've locked up a couple times. I just I figure I just smile, and eventually
Smile and wave.
you'll
Smile
come
and
back.
wave. Yeah.
Spectrum.
We have cocks. That's our
Shh, don't say it out loud. Oh, wait a minute, never mind.
Anyways, so all right. So here's the thing. There are different types of editing. So when you're a writer, one of the things you want to keep a flow of how you are before you send it to your final proofreading. Like you want to get before you even get there to that final proofreading. And in my perspective, I have like almost like line editors, people who like go through your manuscript line by line, making sure that the flow, like you're not making it redundant. Like, oh my gosh, you've used this word like 7 times in the same paragraph. Like I just recently read a book from someone. It was the opening page was only 2/3 filled. And I heard the word he probably 15 times. It was like he this, oh he that, and I'm like, it's too much for me. Like it didn't hold my interest. I was too many. The words were like too overly used. So you got to kind of like be careful of that when you're doing the line editing.
I'm not ignoring you or playing on my phone. I'm looking for books that I actually used to edit, because I'm not a great editor. Everything goes to him, but I do.
Never self-edit. Never self-edit.
No, I do a basic structural read through compared to my notes to make sure I'm not naming a green tunic red. So I have that continuity, and I'll try to check, because I'm not great with punctuation, but like if it's eggs, bread, and milk, I'll do eggs, comma, bread, comma, and milk. Some people don't use that style, but I try to keep the continuity there and just read through it. And I like to read my book aloud. And I do have a couple books like this, The Only Grammar Book You'll Ever Need book. I mean, there's a bunch of little, quick editing books you could get on Kindle with some tips. We have some. I wrote 7 Points to Write, 11 Simple Steps, and that's just the basics of that. But at the end of the day, I would not take what I edited and put it out. It has to go to. I did that.
Yeah.
It has to go to editor. And
essentially it has to go to a neutral party editor, someone who doesn't have the investment of not telling you the truth.
Precisely, because the 2 books I really need edited, they went through a school teacher, an English teacher who I absolutely loved, but there wasn't much substance to it. Mm-hmm. She wouldn't say, yes, Jamie, no, you need to fix this, you need to fix that. She just didn't do it. With Rich, he's blunt. He's not even gonna ask you. He's just gonna fix it the way he fixes it. So don't turn to your mother or your father, your brother, your sister, your cousin's former roommate. You gotta find somebody that you can trust.
Right. So essentially, and this is just my process that I'm doing now. Like I've learned through the books that I've done previously that sometimes one edit through is not enough. And you should use different people for your editing. So like, Rich is my overall editor, But like I have other people that, my friend Christine, she is a stickler for like grammar and like flow. Uh, and so she will now, and I only choose her only because she's very honest. And she'll be like, no, I'm not feeling this. Or she's like, oh, yes, I'm like, this is the feeling I want you to have. Let me know if you get it. And she's like, no, I'm not getting that. I'm like, okay, I need to add something else. Or she'll tell me if the flow between the two chapters, or it's like, oh, I did this chapter. And then it's like, oh, what just happened? You know what I mean? She's helping me with that in this new book. And you need someone like that, someone that's going to be honest with you and say, listen, somewhere along the line, you lost me because you were talking about something and I lost the flow. Like I just became disinterested. You need that person. If you don't have that person and you only are surrounded by people like, girl, this book is good. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, she's writing all the time. I can't wait for the next book. And then you go pick it up because people are saying that and you're like, wait, what are they reading? Like what did they love? Because I mean, I had read a book one time that I was excited to read because of the author doing a local book signing. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to support this local author. Bought their book. I posted on social media, bought the book. Can't wait for it to get here. Hearing great things about it. Get the book. I was so like, the first 30 pages was the first chapter. And the first chapter, not only did the characters go to a sporting event, someone broke a limb, met the doctor, got married, and they bought a house with their stepdaughter. Were seeing ghosts. This was the first 30 pages. Like all these things that happened in the first 30 pages. I was like, what? It was an overly exaggerated outline. The story itself, I was like, I mean, there was one paragraph. They were in October at a Halloween store seeing ghosts. The little girl was seeing a ghost, and then the next paragraph, not next chapter, next paragraph was Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, I mean, that goes to show. Here's the problem. I believe everyone deserves the ability to write. We all have a book in us. So I have no problem with that. And I've seen this in the past with like Kindle. They just open the doors, and so many people were putting out books because they got excited. 50 Shades of Grey and Twilight, and then everyone was writing romance and vampire novels, but there was no quality control. And that is a situation where that person didn't understand, oh, this is a different chapter, and they didn't have anybody guiding them.
Well, you know what's the craziest thing? Because and just to reestablish the fact that I'm not calling out this author as a bad author, because this author, there was a love scene that was 3 pages long.
Wow.
She did an amazing job. She did an amazing job on that part. But like the other parts leading up to that were just so quick that I was not ready for it. I was like, she made me blush in the love scene. So I felt the feeling. I was a part of it. It was very vivid. So she has the ability to write. So I'm not discrediting this author. I'm not going to say the author's name because what I'm saying, I'm not saying she's not a good author, but that first book that she put out, I was like, but people are going to, they told her like, this is great. Nothing's changed. Someone would have come along the way and say, hey, I need more. And you did this to me. You did this to me in my third book.
Yes.
Yeah, you did.
I know I drove you nuts because we probably went through half a dozen times.
You're like, I need more. Because I went from writing fiction where I'm leading the reader and not telling them everything to writing nonfiction. And you're like, you have to tell me. You have to tell me what you're trying to say. And so I needed that. Like, oh, fine. Even though I'm rolling my eyes at you through a text message, I'm still going to be like, okay, you're right. I got to go back and I got to get more.
Yeah. So, I mean, the bottom line, if you're going to do self-editing, it's a light pass just to check your grammar and typos, but it's checking your continuity, whether it's a fiction or a nonfiction book. I had this with Rich, because we were using pen names. He didn't know it was me, but I was doing a book on mermaids, and no, it wasn't even that one. It was the another series, and he's like, that Jamie Lynn Saunders, man, she's so immature, and she don't have continuity, and you're jumping from scene to scene, and how in the world did they fall in love only in 2 days? And I'm like, okay, and I went back and rewrote it.
So you were doing it.
And then, I love watching. You like playing video games. I love watching Netflix. I'll binge watch. So structurally in my mind, if I'm writing a book, I try to plot it out like a movie or a TV show so that you
Right.
have that connection. You got to make sure all those are connected before it even goes to an editor who may
Mhm.
do a light edit for your grammar or a complete comprehensive edit, which is what Rich does for me, and he's done for you, where he'll take a paragraph and cut it down to a sentence,
Right. And
So
whether you're going self-publishing, you're going with hybrid publishing, or you're going like big time publishing, it doesn't matter. It needs to go through stages. It needs to go through stages before you're gonna get like just that. You're not gonna get a broader audience that's gonna that love people who love to read are almost in their they'll edit your book because they're like, oh my gosh, this is not flowing. I read so many books, this is not working. You know what I mean?
and they want you to show them, not tell them. They want to move from scene to scene. They want to live in the moments. Now you're starting to sound like me.
I know.
I didn't do it
A
though.
metal water bottle. I'm throwing my phone around. All right. So you have these different styles of editing. You need different types of people to edit. You got to find those people. You need someone that's going to go through and make sure your book's not redundant. You need someone that's going to go through and say, and sometimes you'll find someone that can do multiple of these, but literally don't try to find the same person for all of them. I'm just giving that opinion. I did that in my first book, not so much in my second book. I changed how I edited my second book. I still have Rich do all my final editing, but each time I've added different people to help edit pre Rich, pre editor type stuff. But you have to have someone who, even like if you're especially doing a fiction novel, it's different if you're doing a short story. I mean, short stories, there has to be obviously a storyline development, but it doesn't have to take as long because you're doing a short story. You're doing a quick story. But if you're doing a novel, something that's over 50,000 words, you need to have a bigger development. You can't just be like, don't tell me who your thing is right at first unless I need to know. Like if I need to know who your protagonist is in the very beginning because it's part of the story, that's one thing. But the majority of the time you want to kind of lead or you want to lead them in different directions or whatever.
Yeah, you're trying to do build-ups.
Yeah, you want to build it up. Don't give it away. So you need someone that's going to say, hey, you told me this too soon. Like
Yeah, but
go ahead.
the great thing with an editor like that is if you have a character who's very boisterous and he's always laughing, but then six chapters later he's like hee. That doesn't connect. You have to make sure, and Rich has caught that. It's like, wait a minute, why is Galton, one of my characters, he's got a pretty bad mouth on him. Why all of a sudden is he like, I'm sorry? I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. And he's even done parts where he's taken something out and he's like, oh, it'd be nice if you added something like this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally missed that. You're right. That would have been in my brain if I was thinking about it at the moment. But he'll sometimes say, this would fit. Like I think it was like something about the pyramids or whatever in one of my fiction books. I'm like, oh yeah, that would be good. Even though I'm going to be talking about pyramids later, I didn't add it in this part. So yeah, it's good to have someone that can do multiple things of editing, but you don't need one person doing all of it because your main editor is going through and maybe doing content and like grammar, but you don't want that same person because eventually that story is just going to be so blurry to them because they just have the storyline. They're not going to see some of the other things that are missing.
Yeah.
So you need someone else to go back. And for me, this go round, I have my friend who's going to go through, and I say, and select your friends wisely, because I would have friends that would probably read and be like, oh, it's great. It's really great. Yes, good. But then I need a friend that says, well, yeah, it's good, but I feel like I didn't get clarity here. You need that friend. That's the one you need. Or you need to find the person that's going to do like the developmental editing.
And I got to highly suggest, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I got someone who could do the editing, the grammar. They went to college for English.
It's not the same.
I'm telling you.
Book editing is different.
It is. You can say that. And if you want to use them, that's fine. But don't try to skimp out on hiring an editor, paying an editor. Because at the end of the day, do you want to have a book that is, amazing and of quality control? Or do you want to be one of these first-time authors who just slaps it together, throws it on Kindle, and you're lost in the sea with everybody else because you didn't properly structure this book. This is
Right.
your story. So let's get it right so that we're really telling that story.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like that what is it, the Loves commercial? Like, parents at first choose these diapers, and then once they've had kids, you're like, oh, now we don't need all that stuff, so I'm gonna do this. It's kind of like the reverse. Like, you need all of that. You need to get structured when you're writing. Don't rush the process. Like, oh, my story's done. I want it out. Okay, you'll get it out. But the thing is, if you do it too soon, it like you said, it's gonna get lost. So make it stand out. Make that first chapter pop, because the first chapter is what's going to keep people going. Like, I'm going to read the second chapter,
I tell you, for me, like at this point, writing the actual book that's the easy part. For me. It's then afterwards, I'm like, I need to reread it and check everything, and then run it through somebody to make sure everything's connected. Then go through Rich, and that
Yeah, most people don't realize, like, when you get a book like the Twilight series or any of the other bigger, like, Stephen King things, like, the author will have that thing written in like no time in comparison to the development of the editing, finding what they're marketing, the context, like going in and doing like the content. Like, your agent, when you get an agent, is going to go through and say, before we even submit this to a publisher, we have to rework this. So when you're trying to do query letters and you're trying to get that out to like a bigger publishing name, you have to know that your agent, if they decide to pick you up, is not going to be like, oh, your book is perfect. They're going to be like, no, I need to change it before I can go and try to sell this to a publishing company. You got to change some things. So just be prepared.
Yeah, that's in all creative works too. I see it because all the artists that I work with, even if they've been in the studio and done demos and we have to go through it, there may be times where we change melodies and harmonies, lyrics. So you can't, whatever you're writing, you can't be married to that first, what you consider the first completed draft. It's like Krista said, that was my baby. Every word meant something to me. And I know it does, but now you've grown as an author. You're like, okay, I get this. I see why it is, and I appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah. So, and then when it comes to like, you've got through, so like you get through like making sure that the story's developed. You've gone through all the grammar. You send it to your editor and say like, okay, now I want you at your actual book editor, which is going to make sure that it flows like a book versus a school paper or whatever. Once you went through that, give it to someone else to proofread. So you can see if your editor missed something. You know what I mean? Because like we said, they're human. So like my husband doesn't read anything until I'm pretty much done. I let him read the first chapter of this new one just to kind of see if he liked the flow of it. But when it comes to the final part, I'll wait till Rich is completely done. And I will have like I'll print off the copy and I'll give it to him and say, okay, now go through and see if we've missed something. Because he's really good at catching a lot of my errors. Like some of the marketing stuff that I do behind the scenes or whatever, I will have him look at and he'll be like, oh, guess what? You spelled this wrong. I'm like, oh, thanks.
But you just gave away a brilliant tip. I don't even know if you realize it. Probably. You said, I print out the book and then we go through it. Literally, you should do that. And take a pen and just read word by word, or take your finger and check line by line. And I like to do that. I'll print it out and I'll read it out loud. Yeah. And go through it that way.
And so if anybody ever decides to read my first book, Crystal Gate, I didn't do that. I learned that process later on. So my first book has some edits that need to be done. If I ever pick it back up, I'll re-edit it. If I write a third book, I might do like a revised version. Because I did not do that. And there are things that I feel like I would have changed. And I had someone go back through the book and like make little post-it notes, like, hey, if I ever pick this back up, make me a little post-it notes in this particular copy, and I'm going to go back through there, because it is difficult to self-edit. Because when you self-edit, you are reading, and sometimes you read over as if you put a word there and you didn't. Because in your mind, you put that word there, so your mind is going to read that word, even if it doesn't exist.
It's kind of like, have you seen that thing, a meme, and it's like, if you can read this, your brain. And it's everything's jumbled except the first line. Yeah, I love those. So I'm like, and as I'm reading, I get faster. Like, woo, I'm a genius.
Like, you can't read this upside down and backwards?
I know.
Yeah, but I also, my brain works. I have like 45% right brain and 55% left brain, I think. Or the opposite. I don't know. But I use both sides pretty frequently because I'm artistic and scientific at the same time.
Well, you said something to me earlier before this. She was like, last night I was playing video games and I wrote a college paper. And I'm like making a joke. I'm like, okay, then we're like twins. Maybe you're manic depressive or ADHD. You're like, can I just be superhero? And I
Yeah.
couldn't do that. I mean, I do a lot of multitasking, but to play video games and write, what do you have? Do you have a pencil in your mouth and hitting the keyboard as you're playing?
No. So I played for anybody that is a gamer that might be listening. I played Destiny on my Xbox, and I have so last night I'm a crucible player, so it's PvP. I'm player versus player. I prefer to go in, and I'm going to say this as casually as possible, but I like to play other people that are. So I'm not saying
Aggressive.
I like to play other people. Like I like to play people that are live, so it's not. Like if I play like the simulation part of it, where the ad, like the things are coming out, we call them ads. When they're coming out, and like, oh, I know the ads are coming from the right. I know when they're about to spawn. To me, I'm like, that's a process that I know it's going to happen. I like the unpredictability of playing other people, and so I get a lot of hate mail, by the way, sometimes.
Yep, we discussed this.
But last night we were doing a raid, and which is a 6-person, and we go in and we're playing this Crota raid, and there's a lot of mechanics to it. And so my husband's behind me at his console, I'm over here at my console, and I'm telling them, I'm like, you discuss, because we had one person who hadn't done it. I'm like, you get in there and describe what we're doing to Jub, and I'm gonna go work on this paragraph. And I'm going there, and they're like, is Chris back? Is she back? Or is she writing a paragraph? They knew.
Wow.
They know what I'm doing. And so, and they'll be like, what are you writing about? And I'm like, oh, I'm actually doing a research paper or a research thing on syphilis, but in like in historical records across like the 1800s and stuff in Africa. So.
And so now let's get back, because I'm going to smoke your butt.
Right. Yeah. Well,
so there you go.
Yeah.
That is editing in a nutshell. But that's my ADHD kicking in and taking Carissa in another direction. But that's cool. Right. That's why I love these podcasts.
Yeah. Yes. We'll talk about that at a different time, being able to multitask and staying up late. So, all right. So with that said, definitely work on being unattached to everything in your book, to where if you need to edit and take things out, that's key. Always edit, and do not self-edit all the time when it comes to your final edit. And like we have got on the set list in the future, we have our actual editor may come on and talk to everybody about his opinions on editing and his, like worst situations that he's been in, or like whatever. We'll talk to him about that. So we'll get you like a perspective from one of the editors in the future. But those are my last words. Do you have any last words about editing?
When Rich got on me, I just want to throw this out there, because we like to promote other authors. Yes, I mean, I wrote a couple books like 11 Simple Steps and 7 Points of Right, which you can pick up at Vendera Publishing. They talk a little bit about editing and how to develop your characters. But I bought the only grammar book you'll ever need. I got it in print. I got it in Kindle. It's by Susan Thurman.
We could probably link that to the podcast when we release this one. We'll just put that in the link. So you can just send me that. And then I'll just put that in the notes. I
think it was wonderful. I read it, and it's more about flow and structure. So it's not that we want you to edit your own book, but you know what? It would make it nice if it's kind of prepared for your actual editors, so they don't have to go through and worry about 50,000 typos or pretty bad grammar. So try to clean it up.
It costs you more.
Exactly. And you just ADHD just reminded me of something. Not to be married to your writing, because how Rich cut my book down, cut Chris's book down, it will save you money. So if you have a bigger book, it's going to cost you more in prints per page. So don't be married to it.
But it's also going to cost you more to have it re-edited again. If you,
if you
have to re-edit it, you're like, just be like, okay, I'm going to listen, go through and look at it like an objectively, like, okay, if I'm a reader, let me read through this, blah, blah, blah.
Yep, I like shorter books.
I like shorter books.
Yeah, if he can cut down 450 pages to 350 pages and I didn't miss a thing, I save money and it's done.
I'm adding this to the set list. Longer books
or shorter books.
Books versus shorter. Yeah, we're going to have a whole like Jamie versus Carissa set.
So that'll be a tough one for me though, because My favorite book is Sword of Shannara, and it's 700 pages long. But for me,
So you like
writing
to
books,
read longer, you just like to write shorter.
yes. Yeah, I'll get into a heavy novel, or if it's like if I see a book series, I really don't want to get started. Like Terry Brooks has got a new one out, but I'm waiting on the third book. I
Mhm.
won't even tackle it because I'm not going to read two books and then have to wait a year for the third one because I'll have to go back and read the first two books. So I got to get into flow like I'm watching a Netflix series.
Yeah.
So,
Alrighty. Well,
alrighty.
so if you have any questions, we're going to let you know that you can, and we'll put this in our email is alwaysrightpodcast@gmail.com. You can comment on any of our social media pages with the Always Right podcast. But for now, we're done with this podcast and sharing our take on editing. And until the next time, thank you for listening.
Thank you. See you next podcast episode.